Hey, I'm kind of excited right now. I I just finished this book. It's Desolation Angels, and I tried to do a review of Dharma Bums, which I read a long time ago, but I was reading this and I remembered every time I read a Kerouac book for some reason, it's always my new favorite book by Kerouac, and I read Dharma Bums a long time ago, and it just reminded me of how much I loved that book. And then I was reading Desolation Angels, and um, I finished it yesterday, and I really loved it. Um, it's always my new favorite book. It's such a treat to read Kerouac's style. But yesterday, a bunch of books came in, and then I ordered four books, so I have a kind of a book haul demo, like show and tell kind of thing to put up on the internet. And I ordered four books from Chapters Indigo. So um, where was the other book? Oh yeah, I'm also reading this right now, Pray. It's Michael Chrichton. So I was reading the two of them together. I'm about halfway through it, um, and it's very good. It's a very um, I don't know. It's a it goes fast. It's very entertaining. It's a lot different than Kerouac, though. I mean, comparatively speaking, the two are very different. I mean, one is more of like an entertainment thing, and one is more, and the Kerouac is kind of like a um, well, the Prey is like a suspenseful thriller, kind of keep you on the edge of your toes kind of thing, and Kerouac is more artsy, like art reality, art and reality kind of um, comparison and demonstration of what life is like for a typical guy, which most people can identify with. I don't say I particularly identify with the character in uh, Prey because he's like a scientist and a computer programmer, but the book is interesting regardless. And overall, the content is what makes it this storyline and the um, potential hazard of nanotechnology or nano or uh, sort of like cloning kind of thing. And so I got this book in the mail. This is one that came yesterday, and I started reading it. Wow, it is very good. I'm slowly getting into sci-fi a bit more. So it explains reading the book Prey, but this one it's just over 300 pages. It's called Neuromancer, and it's reminding me of The Matrix. Actually, I don't know if it's The Matrix was based on this, but the guy wrote a foreword, and it was written sometime in the 80s, I believe. And the guy wrote a foreword sometime after, like recently in like 2018 or something, and he was writing it from Vancouver, which I thought was interesting because I was using a bookmark um, from an old bookstore in Vancouver to mark my place. And I liked the cover. I had no idea what this book was, but I just liked the cover. I looked at it and I was like, wow, that's a really cool cover. So, but I read the back of the book. Sharpest data thief in the Matrix nearly crossed the wrong people, and they crippled his nervous system, banished him from cyberspace. Anyways, it's kind of like a Matrix story where they plug in, and or like what's that other one that's like that? Um, I forget. I forget. There's another movie that's like that too. I'll see if I can remember later. But it's really good. I started reading it alongside the Michael Crichton, and so I got this. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by PKD, Philip K. Dick. And obviously at the top it says um, inspiration for the Blade Runner movie or films. And it's not very long. It's actually written in quite large type, and it's just over 200 pages, which I like. I'm a fan of like shorter books that don't take up too much of my time and really move along quickly. And I haven't started reading it, and I haven't even seen Blade Runner, so don't don't put me down for that, because like I know it's like a super classic, but apparently it supposedly takes place in 2019, whereas this book, it doesn't actually say when this book actually takes place, because it was written um, sometime in the late 90s, I think, or it was published in I can't remember, but it was written sometime before 2004, and it doesn't actually say when this takes place. So this one, from what I read, takes place sometime around the 90s, and this one, surprisingly, it was written in the 80s, but takes place sometime around 2014. So they're all futuristic. 2004, sorry, around futuristic novels, but they're like science fiction. So, and I find it interesting knowing that these times have come and gone, like this one, supposedly around 2019, 2020, something like that. And I'm interested to see what it says, because I read High Rise, and that was a futuristic kind of like dystopian novel. And wow, that was realistically something like very accurately came true, with the Trump Tower thing, and Trump becoming president, and extreme consumerism and degradation of society and whatnot. Anyways, yeah. So, but let's not get on a heartbreaker streak. I got this giant, massive textbook. It's Martin Heidegger's Being in Time, and it's published by New York State University Press. So it's like literally a psychology or philosophy textbook, and like, let's just pick something. Dasein does not need to bring itself to beings in original experience, but it nevertheless remains in a being toward these beings. Discoveredness is appropriated to a large extent not by one's own discovering, but by hearsay of what has been said. And the next word is absorption. So, I mean, I can kind of agree with that, actually. It's interesting how they just picked up one random bit of a paragraph, and I liked it immediately. But I was reading a book called it's Existential Philosophy, so I think it predates like Sartre's Being and Nothingness, and so I wanted to read it because I read this book called Existential Philosophy from Dostoevsky to Sartre, and this part of this book was in the text that I read. It was like a translation by a philosophy teacher at Harvard, and I really liked the Martin Heidegger, the Being in Time. So it was a different translation of this book, and so I really liked it, and I wanted to get it for a long time, but I had kind of a bit of trepidation, or at least reluctance to buy it, because it's such a large book and it is kind of a textbook. So I don't know if I'll actually finish it. I don't know, but I'd like to. I'll try, because I find it interesting, and it can be inspirational, especially if you're looking for psychological theory or work withable ideas for other psychological character development and stuff in your own books, which is good thing to have inspiration on. And this one I'm really looking forward to. Oh my god, I've been waiting to read this for a while, because I read the White Album, Joan Didion, and I used to follow this woman on Instagram, and she was such a like inspirational kind of like woman's leadership kind of coachy type person, and I thought it was interesting because she really loved Joan Didion, and she gave she showed all of her Joan Didion books, and she was a really big fan, and so I picked up the White Album. She said it was one of her favorite books, and I just absolutely loved it. Oh my god, it was amazing. Like I really like books on the '60s, and like especially because she knew everybody in like Hollywood, and like everybody um, in music and everything, and she was a journalist, and knew everybody. So like all the people in her books are like super famous from the '60s, and she's just like an elegant, like cool person. Like look at her on the back of that. Look, she looks amazing. Like holy jeez. But that's an older picture. I'm guessing it's from probably the '60s, and she's holding a cigarette, like you know, badass Joan Didion. But um, so I wanted to read this one for a while because, and the other thing too is I just opened this now. This one came today, and I was expecting a completely different cover. Oh, I was so happy they put this cover on it. It's like almost like it looks like an old '60s cover, and on the inside there's a lot of like the little. Hold on, if I can find the little. Oh, sorry about the camera ado. The little hippie flower symbols on the chapter heads, and she just writes such. Sadly, she doesn't write very nice things about society and culture, but the way she writes is just amazing. I love the way she writes. Holy crap. If I could write the way she does, wow. She's just um I don't know what to say. Honestly, pick up anything by Joan Didion. It's usually really good. I haven't read this one yet, but I read the White Album, and that was spectacular. So, and then another thing that I liked about it was in the White Album, she had the beginning of the book, she put in a bunch of like material from her psychological diagnosis or psychological evaluation, and she apparently had some schizoid kind of like problems also, supposedly. But the interesting thing is that they kind of a lot of people in writing and in like cultural um, criticism kind of poo-pooed the whole. I don't know, put down sort of the whole psychological thing, just saying like it takes one to know one, and I'm getting a bunch of meds off you, and I got money, so I'll just take my meds and run, and you can call me whatever you want, and I'll just publish it in a book, and it's gonna look like a bunch of psycho babble, and I'm gonna write something completely amazing like this or the White Album, for example, and it's gonna discredit the whole thing. I mean, if you want to take it that way, but I guess to on a certain aspect of society, like living with a bunch of like drug addicted, like uh, sex starved rock and roll artists, non-traditional lifestyle with no like family life or no. But anyways, you get the picture. So she's living a lifestyle like that, which is like supposedly elegant to people when they watch it on TV and movies, but to a doctor or a psychiatrist or whoever it was that evaluated her, it looks like kind of it's kind of hypocritical in a way because she was part of the lifestyle that she was kind of like. But for me, I lived like that for quite a while, and I don't see a whole lot wrong with it unless you're like completely amoral person. But a lot of interesting writing came out of it, and that has value to people on a whole at the end of the day. So, recap. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Oh, I didn't even say the name. Slouching Towards Bethlehem by Joan Didion. Being in Time by Martin Heidegger. This is a translation. It's originally in German, I think. And William Gibson's Neuromancer. And currently reading Michael Chrichton's Pray. And just finished Desolation Angels by Kerouac. Thank you. Have a nice day.